So I'm watching through Ahsoka, kind of blind. I've never seen Rebels, I've never seen Mandalorian, I've never seen Clone Wars. I'm on episode 2. Episode 1 left off where Sabine got stabbed. At the beginning of this episode, we see Sabine recovering in hospital, which is a nice welcome change from just being stabbed and getting up, which seems to have happened in Obi Wan. A bit reminiscent of the scene at the end of Empire Strikes Back where Luke's getting his hand repaired. Sabine tells Ahsoka what happens, which leads to Ahsoka going to investigate Sabine's house. This scene also has a kind of like Lord of the Rings, Frodo wake up in Rivendell vibe going on. You know, it has that kind of like, he's been stabbed by the ring wraith. It's quite eerie and dark when Sabine wakes up. It's not, oh, wonderful, happy. It's a bit creepy, you know, something horrible's happened to her. It's not just brushed off as if, oh, I'll be okay, which is quite good. So the Dark Jedi head off to Space Stonehenge, which does look really cool. And they put the orb-looking map thing in this hole, and like, oh, we'll speak to Morgan about this. Ahsoka goes back to Sabine's house, and the cinematography is fantastic of the planet. Absolutely brilliant. Rosario Dawson really gets to show off her acting chops in this next scene, because she goes into Sabine's house, and there's pretty much no dialogue for the entire time, apart from one line at the end, which I won't spoil. Really got a hell of a presence, really sort of selling the character as well. And then gets this sort of droid's helmet and brings it back. She goes back to the hospital to see Sabine. When she's there with Sabine, Sabine's really, really keen to get things fixed, and she's doing the whole like mechanic, I'm going to fix this droid to find out where we need to go type thing. It sort of feels very reminiscent of Luke Skywalker in the first Star Wars film, and of course Empire Strikes Back, where he's desperate to prove himself. You know, am I going to be a Jedi? Sabine kind of feels very similar to that. She wants to prove herself, and I guess in some ways run before she can walk. Also, the droid played by David Tennant is really, really cool. Kind of got like a what C-3PO wants to be vibe going on. So he's not annoying. He makes little quips, and there's some quirky quips going on, but you can tell that this droid's an older droid and has been there a long time and has seen different characters, knows how to motivate them. What I really like about this series so far is that the relationship they're building between Sabine and Ahsoka is two-way. So it's not like in, say, the original Star Wars trilogy where you had Obi Wan Kenobi was just this grand sage. I mean, his story throughout all the other films is obviously a bit deeper, but he was there as Luke's guiding light. There was no real dynamic there where he changed as a character because of Luke, because he was kind of there as like a ghost for most of those films. Whereas here you've got the Ahsoka and Sabine two-way vibe where, you know, Ahsoka needs Sabine and Sabine needs Ahsoka, which is, I think, really interesting and not something that I've seen Star Wars do so much, for the stuff I've seen anyway, which is a nice change from the whole it's all about this younger character leaning off the older characters. Actually, the older characters have got depth as well, which I like. So go back to Space Stonehenge and see the Dark Jedi having a scene as well. And I really like the design of the Dark Jedi here. I think I'm not too sure because I don't know what happens yet, but obviously Baylon, the sort of leader, is, you know, wearing a black cloak and a sort of grey beard, so he's like mostly on the dark side, it feels like. Whereas Shin, his apprentice, is a lot lighter looking. She's wearing grey robes and you know, has a lighter hair, so it kind of feels like that she's not fully dark, either because she's a grey character or because, you know, maybe it's just because she's not as developed and she's a Padawan and just learning. So the you know, the production design there and the costumes are really well thought out. You can tell that's something that's not just a whim, that's definitely been planned. And the dynamic comparison, this episode is kind of, you can sort of tell, written to show the dynamic between Ahsoka and Sabine as sort of master and apprentice, but also Baylon and Shin as master and apprentice. And what's interesting about Shin's relationship with Baylon is Shin's not spoken very much yet. This is probably the most dialogue she's had so far. And she seems more like she's a bit frightened of Baylon as opposed to respectful of him, which, you know, and he kind of orders her around. There's less of that trying to convince her to come along like Ahsoka seems to be doing with Sabine. It turns out that Admiral Thrawn is stuck in another galaxy, which is interesting because I don't know much writing in the Star Wars where they go outside of the galaxy. I don't know if they're going to end up outside the galaxy or Thrawn's going to come back in later. I'm not sure yet, but it'd be interesting to see. So Ahsoka goes with Admiral Syndulla, who's Scott Pilgrim's green girlfriend, to Corellia, which is interesting, to track the droid that attacked Sabine. And while they're there, it turns out that a lot of people are working for the Empire, and Shin's there with, I think, an Inquisitor or someone related to an Inquisitor, because they have that double-bladed lightsaber that was in Obi Wan Kenobi. And the Inquisitor character fights with Ahsoka while Syndulla flies off and puts a tracking device on the ship. The fight scenes here are really good. Again, the world feels very lived in. They're in this kind of shipyard type place, which is on Corellia. There's also a lot of like undertones of the political side of things. So we're talking about how the Empire is now changing to the New Republic, but it's not just like Empire, New Republic. There's a little bit of, you know, the people lower down the sort of pecking order don't really know who's in charge of them. Similar themes that was shown a little bit in The Last Jedi, which is nice to see, because that was a good part of The Last Jedi, was the shades of grey element that was shown in the world, making it a bit more realistic and relatable. So I like that that's been shown off. The characters here so far seem very conflicted. The Jedi way and the Jedi path and also the Sith path seem to not be talked about as much. It seems like all the Jedi characters we've seen so far are very grey, which is seen further with a scene a little bit later on with Baylon and Shin, where they're talking to Morgan. There's a scene where Baylon shows he's a little bit worried about Ahsoka, and there's a very, very brief scene where Shin looks at him and like concerned there, because I think she's a bit terrified of this guy, but also I think in some ways looks up to him in a sense that, you know, this guy's capable and powerful, and she's seen him look afraid or a little bit concerned, which is a bit daunting for her. And you can tell he's a bit conflicted because he doesn't want to kill Ahsoka because it's a shame, because she's one of the last Jedis remaining that we know of. It's also nice seeing Syndulla, who is Scott Pilgrim's green girlfriend, flying off into space. You know, she's a general character, and she's not in an ivory tower. She just gets in and does stuff. So it's not just left to one character. So again, like I said in the first episode, it seems like this isn't just Ahsoka's show. It's very much an ensemble show, which I like. Later on, Sabine has like this moment with the Mandalorian armor and does the typical, you know, cuts her hair, which is like a bit of a coming of age moment. It's kind of reminiscent in a way of the burning homestead moment in A New Hope, where Luke Skywalker has to move forward and all that kind of thing. But this feels a bit more mature than that, because obviously Luke Skywalker had seen his surrogate parents, Owen and Beru, die, and he had to move. He had no choice. He would either just like, you know, give up or go with Obi Wan Kenobi, whereas here, it doesn't feel quite like that. There's an element of it because obviously she's been attacked in her home, but it doesn't have that, you know, you leave or you die vibe going for it. It's like it's more of a mature choice that she's made, which I think is a bit interesting. So I'm not sure what I think of Morgan, the character. The actress seems to play her very well, but she seems very one-dimensional to me. I mean, it could be that there's more revealed as time goes on with the character and explains what her backstory is and who she is and what she does and all that kind of thing. But she just seems like very much like a "you will do what I say and I'm evil, mwahaha" kind of villain, which I'm not too sold on. You know, it's interesting because the other characters seem that there's a shades of grey element with them. I mean, there is the theme going on where Syndulla says, well, how can anyone like the Empire, you know, and so I think she's kind of like playing the sort of good character in a sense that might be one-dimensional, and I think that the character of Morgan's playing the evil character. You know, I don't know what the term would be, so I guess maybe they're supposed to be polar opposites and everyone else in the middle is kind of grey, so that might be the way they're building the series. I like David Tennant as HuYang because, again, he's an older type sage character. A bit reminiscent of like Shepard Book from Firefly, it feels like, you know, knows a lot about the characters and can empathise with people and get the best out of them kind of vibe. Baylon senses within the Force that Ahsoka is going to come and get them, so there's this build to the fact that Ahsoka is obviously the linchpin of the series. Pretty interesting episode. It wasn't quite as fight-tastic as the last one. I mean, the last fight in the end of the first episode was really, really heated. There's a couple of scenes of action here and it gets you a bit pumped up, but it didn't feel like there was too much emotional weight around it. It was kind of like a set piece to get to the next stage. It was kind of the information character building episode. Obviously, like I said, the comparison between Dark Jedi and the Light Jedi, if you can call them that, was there. And, you know, very much a character piece, so there was nothing really to sort of poke fun at or anything like that. It just seemed like a very solid episode. So I'm enjoying it, and I'm certainly looking forward to the next episode. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and see you later.